Good morning, Grandma Rocker here. I'm 75 and I've been playing rock and roll since 1961, and I've seen the major history of it, so I'm going to run down some of that. Per my database, um, you have to interview old people to find out what actually happened. Rock and roll is the folk music of the United States of America. And the reason it went worldwide, according to a Norwegian jazz guitar player I played with, is they have a better sales team than the other countries. So in the beginning, in the South, there were two groups at the bottom of the social classes, which was the Negroes from Africa and the Irish. And the early U.S. was being settled by the British and the French, who were colonial powers, and they didn't think much of the Irish, and they had slaves in the early days from Africa. So these people were sort of pressed together at the bottom of the social scale there, and the Africans had the drumming and the rhythms. And to make money, they developed this thing called the minstrel show, where they would play string bass and banjos and drums and sing beautifully. And the Irish had the chord system, which was jigs and reels, which are basically E and D, like My Generation or Gloria or 1,000 other rock songs. And the other one is G and D, G and D, G and D, then they jump to the E minor for the bridge. But the violinist playing modes over these chords, and somebody one day must have leaned over to the Negroes and said, you know, there are these things called modes. So that was brought into the minstrel shows, and from that the Negroes developed jazz. So that's where jazz came from. In the early 50s, all the music was being done by adults. There's a kind of music called the tuneful 50s, like Frank Sinatra, Percy Faith and his orchestra, Edie Gourmet, who is the mentor to Lady Gaga, by the way. And to get a popular form of music, they generally combine two things. And combine the African rhythms with the chord system of Irish music. So rock and roll is basically Irish music with African drumming. You get something pretty exciting. Or rhythm and blues, which the blues came out of also the South. Simple chording and the pentatonic scale, which is, say, what Eric Clapton's career is built on, is the pentatonic scale over rhythm. Instead of blues is generally 6/8 time, very slow, with some rhythm behind it. And there was a jazz guitarist, he said if you use the pentatonic scale with a good rhythm behind it, it's unstoppable. So that's what a lot of 60s, early 70s rock's based on, the great guitar players playing the pentatonic scale. But in the beginning, there wasn't really any rock and roll on the radio. I guess this is more of a how it came into the culture. There were young Caucasian people like Pat Boone, for example, making records that were a little less adult, a little more teen-oriented, and somebody recognized there was a gigantic market of young people called the baby boomers. And music started to be created for them, but it wasn't by young people. It was by people in the BRILL building in New York writing songs. It was like Neil Sedaka and Carole King were pumping out records, not for themselves, but writing for other people. And it was being sold as rock and roll to young people. And on the, that was New York, West Coast, the Wrecking Crew and many record companies were making rock and roll records for children, basically, for kids. Like the Monster Mash, for example, or Ahab the Arab, Purple People Eater. And these are adults with musical educations writing music for children, commercial music that could be sold. And we picked up on this. Well, we like this stuff. And then some humans started appearing, young people saying, yeah, this is okay, but it could be done better. And someone like Eddie Cochran, really raw, really real, really rock and roll. And Buddy Holly, just a trio. And I still have records that I've had since I was 10, like by Bill Black combo. Bill Black was Elvis's bass player. Also had a sort of a little mini rhythm and blues band playing instrumentals. And I remember the first rock and roll record is actually an Ike Turner song. I think it's called Rocket 88. Then there was a record by Bill Haley and the Comets, Rock Around the Clock, which took weeks and weeks and weeks, slowly climbed up over months to #1 because it was being held back by the owls. Hey, what is this? And that sort of opened the floodgates to what was in the South, which was rock and roll, which was originally became tent show music for the religious tent shows. And then after it got dark and the kids were sent home, then the music got a little wilder and the jokes got a little raunchier. And this is well explained in the documentary about the band called The Band, Ronnie Hawkins' backup band. And he was trying to explain this to the documentary guys, and they said, well, what was it called? He said, rock and roll. So that's where it came from. And for a while, the radio stations were split between, actually they weren't split. A radio station would play everything in the old days. So they were playing adult contemporary, like Andy Williams or Frank Sinatra, Barbra Streisand. And then they would play a country record. and then they would play a rock and roll record. And years later, it became split up. They started target marketing people with the radio stations. But there was a heyday for early rock where actual young people were saying, no, this has to be played like this. You can't be an adult with a white shirt and a bow tie and a music chart in front of you and rock. It's a new idea. And fortunately or unfortunately, I guess this wouldn't have happened without the power of adult money to get this stuff recorded and put out on radio stations. So we began to have an army of professionals writing and playing rock and roll. And that's when it lost its edge. But money is always involved. I'm talking about a cultural phenomenon because of the proliferation of radio across the US of A and the rest of the world. We have a philosopher up here in Canada, and his famous phrase is, the medium is the message. So the message was not the fact that you're on the radio, but the fact that there is radio. And this is a cultural phenomenon. And you can put things on the radio and influence the culture. So the other line of this is the combo of rhythm and blues, which again mostly uses the pentatonic scale. And we had resistance to that on the mainstream radio stations. And this was done by the American Negroes, and it was called race music, sometimes parlor music, jungle music. But young kids liked it because of its soul and rhythms. It was a little more appealing than rock and roll being done by adults. So it slowly made its way into the musicians, and they started playing it, saying, you got to hear this, this is great, listen to this song, it's fantastic. And then the advent of Berry Gordy and Motown, which is a big part of history, actually. I think Motown powered the peace movement. And all eyes were on Motown for a while. That made things better in America and around the world. Now, I saw a lot of things. I saw the Ike and Tina Turner review when they were wild and crazy. Ikeettes weren't wearing any underwear. And saw the people right up at the front of the stage. I saw James Brown twice, had 4 drummers, and huge band. Never seen anybody work so hard, sweat so much. Really was the hardest working man in show business. And the warm-up act for him was Fontella Bass, which is Rescue Me was her big song. I saw the Rolling Stones before giant Brian Jones passed away. And they came out and stepped over their amps, plugged them in, and started instantly, which is a rock and roll trick. You young guys should learn. Don't hang around. Come on the stage, start immediately. And if there's a curtain, don't wait for them to open the curtain, start immediately. People will boo you, and as the curtain opens, you're going to go, oh my God, I've done this many, many times. Works every time. And they started with Love Is Love and Not Fade Away. And when Brian Jones hit that harmonica, it was like the devil himself was playing it. And the whole audience rushed the stage, and the police chief pulled the power on the PA because there was going to be, someone might get hurt. So they made everybody sit back down. They started again. Same thing happened. And the police chief said, if you do that again, I'm going to cancel the concert. And Mick Jagger took his microphone and just threw it up in the air. In his frustration, like, how can you do a concert if they keep pulling the plug? I saw Jimi Hendrix here with Emerson, Lake and Palmer with a warm-up act. And the Vanilla Fudge was on before them. And people were jumping up and down saying, Purple Haze, and Jimi Hendrix told us to shut up. He said, I'll get to the Mickey Mouse stuff later. And then he played Third Stone from the Sun. If you don't know that, check it out after this video. And all of this noise, which we thought were background tracks and overdubs, he did it all live. And his equipment was 4 200-watt Marshall stacks with 2 bottoms. And then it looked like he'd rented every amp in town down the side at a 90-degree angle. It was 2 Sun amps, probably with the JBL signature speakers that he got from Leslie West. And then Gibson Titan and 2 Fender Twins. And something else at the end. And halfway through the concert, he walked over to that, and he listens, and he calls his tech over and says, this amp's not running. One of the Twins. So it was replaced. So part of the secret of doing what he was doing was having this big L shape of lots of amps where you can just tease that guitar. And I saw Yes in the same arena, and they were that good. They did it live. And I saw the guy with the flute, Ian Anderson, those guys. Did their set, and then people were clamoring for more, and they did a couple of encores, and then they left, and people were clamoring for more. So they sent their drummer and guitar player out, and just the 2 of them did what the Cream did. It sounded like the Cream. Look, it's a good job. And in Europe, when I was in Europe, I sang at the Star Club. We did 12-hour gigs. It's not all that glamorous. Hour on, hour off. And we did opening shows for the Beach Boys, Chad and Jeremy, the Trogs, Golden Earrings. And we just missed opening for Hendrix and Van Morrison. So I've seen some stuff as to bumped heads with Stevie Wonder. He came into the music store I was working, and I was the keyboard guy, so he's trying to find me, and somebody said, Mr. Stevie Wonder's here, and I said, don't give me that effing shit. And I turned, banged into his head, and he went, Stevie Wonder's right here, reaching for me. So he was looking for a keyboard, a Horner pianette with a sustain function, and there had been one down the street just a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I know where there was one. I'll go down and see if we can recover it from whoever bought it, and that didn't work out. And there's some piano tech on a Ray Charles show. So seeing Ray Charles. Right now I'm going to jam sessions and open mics to recover my chops. I play drums, bass guitar, rhythm guitar, lead guitar, Hammond B3, and electric piano, like a Rhodes style piano. I keep offering to produce people's original music. There's some pretty good stuff here, and nobody believes me. Maybe I need to change my image so they'll let me help them. And in conclusion, don't waste your life being a Saturday night soldier. There's people my age bracket. These people coming to these open mics, they've never really done anything. I was in a band, rehearsed 12 hours a day. We went to Europe. We got signed by PARLOR, Polygram, has a #5 record. And our album, which we recorded 50 years ago, was just released 2 years back worldwide, which is bordering on pretty crazy. Either you're gonna make it or you're not. Do it while you're young, do it hard, get rid of anybody who's holding you back. Like, don't keep a bad drummer because he's a great singer. Let him be a great singer and get a good drummer. If you notice, there has to be a human being on the project where it plays. They don't play Michael Jackson anymore. They don't play Elvis anymore. They don't play Frank Sinatra anymore. On the radio, they don't play the Beatles, actually. So someone has to be on the job doing it. So be that person. So you can say, I tried as hard as possible. And it's kind of like luck of the draw. I used to do little teen concerts, and I had bands come through, and I had my daughter was helping me. She knew who they were. I did. We had 50 Cent. She said, you got to hear this guy called 50 Cent. And I was like, no thanks, I'm not interested in rap. We had the Flaming Lips, before they were famous. Frank Roberts or Mark Roberts. He's the guy, I said, this guy's going to be a star. He's got the charisma, and he was really nice. So get out there and do it. My grandmother said, have all the fun you can while you're young, because when you're old old for a long, long time. And I've been really old now for 25 years. It's a life sentence. This getting married and hanging on with the kids and the wife and the dogs, trying to do it part-time I haven't seen it work out for anyone. So that Brian Adams song, when he's with the girl on the porch and he said it was now or never. Either you make a lifetime with that girl, or you don't do that and you choose a completely different path, which is playing music on the road, where you will wind up with a different wife. in a different place. But be true to yourself. Don't stretch your soul. Don't get caught in the stress. You have to make a decision. And after each decision is a pathway. And the correct pathway is to be true to yourself and don't let other people guilt trip you into straying off your path. And take music lessons. Learn musical theory. There's many more people with cabots. Stop doing that. Learn how to play guitar. That limits you to maybe 7 chords if you're one of those people. The 2 biggest songs in the world have other chords than the rock and roll chords, and they are Stairway to Heaven and Hotel California. You get the chord chart. This would be the next level of rock and roll if people knew that stuff. And the Beatles have other chords. And you'd be well served to look at the Beatles music and go, what are those slight alterations to the chord there? Also, what the Beatles did was you take your chord structure and take anything that's not a major or minor or 7th chord and put it in the vocals. So you're kind of hiding the musical theory, jazz-ish kind of knowledge and not playing it on your musical instrument. So that's jazzy. No, it's rock and roll. No, and aren't the vocals amazing? Plus for young bands, I would say everybody sings, because if you stay together after a year, you'll be able to sing harmony. I mean, this may be hard on the lead singer to have all that caterwauling, but you get used to singing and playing, and after a year of that, you'll be able to sing harmony as a band. And it's more fun. I was in a Beatles tribute band and we were rehearsing, copying the Beatles, and across the street, literally in the garage, there was a garage band just playing fun, happy music. And I was jealous. They were just like bang, 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 playing a Gloria and stuff like that. But they were having way more fun than we were. And I went into a pub once and there was a trio just playing simple songs, and they were not good, they were not terrible, they were just playing 3-chord songs like Wild Thing. And they were just like, what do we do? Let's do Wild Thing. Okay, and they play it. They were having a blast, and people were having a blast listening to them. And cozy right up to that, as Bob Dylan said, it only has to be good enough to communicate. And I say, appended to that, if quality is all that's important, then we'd all be playing classical music. And we're not. So that's my advice for today. I just spent yesterday repairing my latest electric piano so I can take that around. I've been drumming at these gigs, but the arthritis in my hand is so painful here, I can't do that anymore, so I'm going to have to give up on drumming and just play keyboards. Boo-hoo, so bad for me. Okay, so take this to heart, share it with other rockers. I've been doing this for 60 plus years. I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm forgotten 1,000 things. I have 1,000,000 stories.